Dear devotees and friends, welcome to all. Today, the 12th of January, the birthday of Swami Vivekananda, according to the English calendar, has been declared by the Government of India as the National Youth Day, as it was felt that the philosophy of Swamiji and the ideals for which he lived and worked could be a great source of inspiration for the Indian youth. We have been organizing various functions in different parts of the country to give a correct lead to the youth of the land to translate Swamiji's lofty ideals into practice. India is our birthland and sacred motherland. It is only a few years back, that is 7-8 decades back, that we have got independence after many decades of slavery. The united efforts of all Indians of all classes are now necessary to build up the nation. But in order to proceed with this task, it is essential to have a clear conception about the future of India. When an artist sits down to draw, his picture can be best if there exists in the artist's mind a clear idea about the subject of his drawing. In the same way, we should have a clear idea before laying our hands in the task of nation building. We have to draw in our minds a clear picture of the future India. In what form do we want to build India? And as youth, dynamic individuals are human power of the nation, how best youth can supply and work towards that rebuilding India as a nation with gigantic military power, but that cannot be our ideal. No military power survives for long. Wealth and prosperity, we certainly need to alleviate the poverty of the masses. But if we imagine that by mere wealth all the problems would be solved, then we are mistaken. In Western countries, there is no end of wealth. But they have no peace. The boys and girls of those countries are wandering about helplessly even after getting enjoyments of all types. Their life has become absolutely aimless. We shall have military strength to protect our freedom, not to capture the territory of our neighbors. We shall acquire wealth to solve the food problems of the masses. But mere acquirement of wealth will not be the principal aim of our life. Of what use is power or wealth if we cannot give us peace of mind? So, it is necessary to study the ancient history of India with the help of great thinkers and masterminds like Swami Vivekananda. This we should do now to know how ancient India had acquired her prosperity and along with that had also shown the path to peace, and how her degeneration from that high state had come about. To build the India of the future, we have to accept all those ideals that had made us great and reject everything that had brought about our fall. And to this must be added the knowledge of pure science and of technology. Note the word science. Nowadays, we swear by science every moment. In the name of science, it has become a fashion to look down upon the past. But is it scientific to disregard the past or to be ignorant of what great things existed in the past? Is it scientific to blindly run after Western ideals which have not yet stood the test of time, without considering how we are still intact for the last 3,000 years, even in the midst of so many upheavals? Isn't it necessary to know how the problems of life have accumulated in the West? God has reared us up. He has given us the power to think. Why we shouldn't test everything before accepting? Why should we go on revolving uselessly like bullocks in an oil mill, and that even in the name of science? To deliver us from this state, Sri Ramakrishna has brought a good news for all of us. His message is not only for India, it is for the whole world. We shouldn't forget that. For age after age, the chief foundation of India's cultural life has been religion. Often it is heard that religion is responsible for our present degradation. But Swami Vivekananda has pointed out just the opposite. He said that our present bad condition is due to not practicing religion properly. Religion is not the observance of a few superstitions and do's and don'ts and local customs. According to Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, religion is realization, a direct experience of the highest truth. Before a society plagued by doubts under the influence of modern society, they both made the spirited declaration, God exists or truth exists, and all religions' fights take one along the path of actual experience and lead to the truth or God realization. Looking upon mud and gold as same, Sri Ramakrishna has shown to the predominantly selfish world how paltry, vain and meaningless it is to grab all the wealth and take possession of other men's land. He has revealed that irrespective of caste, religion and social status, the same Atman is present in everyone, in the rich and in the poor, in the learned and the ignoramus, in the high and the low. That is why the distinctions between men are imaginary, they are man-made. So the prevailing fight all over the world between castes, between societies and between different social groups is detestable. As a part of this teaching, Sri Ramakrishna or Vivekananda declared, serve man as a veritable manifestation of God. If man is served looking upon him as God, one can thereby attain truth realization. In this way, Sri Ramakrishna established harmony in the conflict between work and worship, which had been prevalent since many centuries. He showed that the work which is done inspired by a true ideal is transformed into worship by proper attitude. The message of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda was to spread broadcast all over the world, particularly by Swami Vivekananda. Incomparable is this message. By its influence, the establishment of a new social order all the world over is inevitable. This modern darkness in the present times, however, we have not been able to live up to the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna Vivekananda. As a result, we are seeing darkness everywhere. Only darkness in every stratum of society. We find only lack of honesty, as if the whole society is infested with black marketing and filled with black money. Wherever we look, there is disappointment and decadence. The same lamentable picture exists even as regards politics and social relationships. We see that although there is a same progress in certain material fields, a terrible degeneration has taken place on the moral plane of mankind. It is becoming increasingly difficult for the good and religious people to stay in the midst of such a hostile environment. The civilization in the whole world, and not only in India, is in danger. Wrong moral and educational ideals are responsible. The principal cause of this threat to civilization is the neglect of spiritual ideals and the acceptance of materialistic ideology. It is materialism that is the ideal of Western nations. From them, this ideology has flooded the entire world. India too couldn't escape. It has entered into all levels of our life, particularly so in the sphere of education. If I am asked, why is our country is in a bad condition? Why is there lack of total or real men? I shall reply, the trouble is at the very root. The education we can get in no way produce men of character and integrity. It is said in the Bible, do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Having come to our country, the English had burdened us with the European educational pattern. Even now, even after independence, we are more or less following the same pattern. Their educational system was evolved according to their requirements. It has no connection with our hopes, aspirations, and history. So, if we are not able to mold our pattern of education in tune with our national life stream, if we continue to follow blindly the British pattern, then the situation would remain unchanged. Since ages past, this race has aspired for the attainment of the highest truth. Our ancient system of education was oriented only towards this ideal. It is what has been called paravidya or spiritual knowledge. But for that reason, aparavidya or secular knowledge has not been condemned. That is why India was leading even in the acquisition of aparavidya. What we want is the harmony between paravidya and aparavidya, between material, sciences and spiritual knowledge. It is the separation between these two that has brought about all the problems in this educational field. Swami Vivekananda has said that we should teach all those branches of knowledge which we had in India in ancient days, and along with it, learning the English language is also imperative, because through it we can speak to the world at large. Modern science too is essential along with technology, which would build our industries and prosperity. But if we want to be real men, we must continue this paravidya with this education. The foundation of paravidya lies in character building. Unless the character is molded, nothing can be achieved. Character cannot be built by giving lectures or enacting laws in the parliament. For that, we need pure religious and moral education. This would cultivate the student's mind and intellect, make his heart strong and make his mind pure. The mind has an important role to play. It is only by means of the mind that man obtains knowledge. If the mind becomes defective, no real acquisition of knowledge is possible through it. Here is an example. Once a professor of science came to see the laboratory in one of the colleges. He saw a hazy picture through a microscope there. When he removed the lens, cleaned it with his kerchief and replaced it on the instrument, then the view became clear. Now if you don't keep carefully the microscope called the mind, through which you wish to see, if you don't clean it, tell me, how would you gather knowledge through it? So we should have a clarity of mind and purity of mind. Swamiji's or Swami Vivekananda's warning and direction. When Swami Vivekananda returned to India from America, a few people said to him at some place in South India, Swamiji, please come to politics and make India free. Then we will all follow you. Swami Vivekananda replied, I can give you freedom tomorrow itself, but will you be able to preserve it? Where do you have the men? First make men in the true sense of the term, and then think of freedom. We realize today how true Swami Vivekananda's words were. Why is the condition of our country so wretched with corruption? Because there are no men of character and integrity. It is misguided education and life pattern that we are perceiving the making of true men. There is much substance in what you hear nowadays in convocation meetings, but one fails to find in them any mention about the ideals or principles of fundamental life. How different were the convocation meetings of the ancient times as we find in the Upanishads. In those days, the teachers would tell the student before he returns home, be truthful, be righteous, speak the truth, practice religion in the true sense of the word, be righteous, don't perform evil deeds, follow what is good and noble. They used to say, be a man, don't stop the pursuit of knowledge just because you are now leaving the school. Study you must, always. They would further instruct, Matrudevo Bhava, let your mother be your God. Pitrudevo Bhava, let your father be your God. Acharya Devo Bhava, let your teacher be your God. They used to give all these instructions. To this, Swamiji has added two more instructions. Daridra Devo Bhava, let the poor be your God. Murkha Devo Bhava, let the ignorant be your God. Swami Vivekananda used to urge, don't forget India. Nowadays, all who are good at studies want to go abroad. It is good to visit other countries, but to stay there permanently, why should you? Why should you settle down in foreign countries? The India that has given you the birth, that has reared you up, would you forget her just for the sake of getting a little more money? I know you have a lot to say against our country, but you will say, here we have to wander about helplessly. No one understands our value. How much trouble we have even to get a job of 2,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 rupees. But in America, we get jobs fetching thousands of dollars. Yes, that is true. It is also true that merit and skill are not given their due in our country nowadays. Even then, I would appeal to you, no, please do not desert India. Do not forget our country. Just the other day I read in the newspapers that 12 or 13 Indians got some good prizes in America for doing some remarkable work in science. But all of them now were American citizens. What does it all amount to? It was India that brought them up. They have taken so much from her, and when it was their due and turn to give something back, they gave the credit to some other country. Just think over it. Stand by India so. The students should, of course, devote themselves to their studies, but they have also to keep in mind that they are Indians, Bharatiya Paura. They are not to live somewhere cut off from all other people and shun contact with the people outside. When you go to the settlements or villages round about your place, you will see how people live there and in what a miserable condition. Then you will remember Swami Vivekananda's words, without making the multitude of masses into real men. If only a handful of people become educated, that is not going to do any good to the country. If the country has to be awakened, education must be brought to all. All those ordinary people have to be trained in work in such a way that they learn to earn their bread and are able to stand on their own feet. Students, when you finish your studies and before you enter into the world, you must devote 2 years of your time for the service of our countrymen. Live for at least 2 years with the poor, the depressed, the illiterate, and make them dignified men. Then you will get the blessings of all these people before you begin your life in the world. By their blessings, by their good wishes, your life will be successful, and the country too would progress rapidly. We'll look at the villages. The real India lives in the villages, said wise people. Unless we are able to uplift the tribals and the backward classes, India faces a dark future. Along with their economic improvement, they have also to be raised culturally and spiritually. The backward classes are living a terrible poverty. Today there is a morsel to eat, perhaps there is nothing on the next day. Along with the problem of burning hunger, there are also other problems of health, unclean habitation, and water pollution. That is why the problems of backward classes ought to be given precedence today on a national emergency level. If it is not possible to do anything else, at least preach the message of manliness of Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. The preaching of his message would bring about many good results because his message carries light. It is just the promise of Sri Krishna in the Gita that whoever reads the Gita, the gospel of psychology, or recites it for the benefit of others would thereby attains merit. So it is our duty to preach the message of Swami Vivekananda in all levels, at all levels of society. Along with India, let the whole world become a sharer of the glad tidings proclaimed by Swami Vivekananda. Wherever in the world his message has reached, there it has been wholeheartedly accepted. We can only conclude from this that the world is eagerly waiting for his preachings and teachings. May Swamiji's blessings be showered on you. Swami Vivekananda's dynamic concept and Swami Vivekananda's special advice to the youth we shall see for a few minutes. Swamiji defined the source of our current problems. Excess of knowledge and power without holiness makes human beings devils. Tremendous power is being acquired by the manufacture of machines and other appliances, and privilege is claimed today as it has never been claimed in the history of the world. Glaring injustice and human suffering force us to realize the truth of his remark. He foresaw a solution for the youth of India and the world and wrote to Haridas Biharidas Desai in one of the important letters. He says, 3 things are necessary to make every man great, every nation great. Conviction of the powers of goodness. Absence of jealousy and suspicion, second. Third, helping all who are trying to be good and do good. Swamiji introduced a new Indian prototype to the young men of India. Be strong and manly, he told them, knowing that the strength of a nation depends upon the strength of its individual members. For the weak and the cowardly cannot achieve anything. He was creating the new national prototype, men of strength and